Okay, so CORS stands for Cross-Origin Resource Sharing. Now the idea here is this is a restriction inside of the web browser that prevents one origin from making requests to another origin. An origin, let's define that, is a server, like a host name. So something like google.com is an origin. www.google.com is a different origin. Yahoo.com is an origin. Yahoo.com port 443 is a separate origin. So every website that exists is a potential origin that you're talking to. So all of these APIs that we're making requests to, the URL, like the beginning host name of the URL, is an origin. So what cross-origin resource sharing, what that prevents from happening is one origin making requests to another origin without being allowed. So if we think about, let's say you're on badsite.com, or let's just do, let's go to Google. That's badsite.com. And what if, when this page loaded, behind the scenes, Google had an Ajax request that requested your bank info from chase.com. So what if we did a GET request to http://chase.com/profile/dashboard? I don't know. They would figure out what the actual URL is. If they could make this request and then right now I could just let's say I just alert the result and it gets back a result. If I was allowed to do this, this would be a very big security risk because any website that you go to, without you knowing under the hood, JavaScript could be making requests to some other origin. So cross-origin resource sharing is a restriction the browser places. So when it sees a request going out, if the origin does not match the origin of the thing being requested, you will get that error. So let's see what happens when I do this. That would make sense because I don't have jQuery. Let's try to fetch then. Okay, that wouldn't work right either. Let's make it HTTPS. Okay, so I'm visiting google.com. In the script tag behind the scenes, there is this request going out to Chase. That request happens, and then you'll see the CORS error in your console. So if you're ever making an Ajax request that is against an origin that you're not allowed to make requests to, you're going to see this error. So it says, fetch API, or you would see XML HTTP requests cannot load this URL and has been blocked by CORS policy. No access control allow origin header is present on the requested resource. Origin google.com is therefore not allowed access. So this is a restriction placed on browsers. If one origin tries to request data from another origin, it will instantly block it if this access control allow origin header is not set. So resource sharing, those words really mean one domain requesting data from another domain. So they're sharing resources. So cross-origin is when you're trying to request from one origin to another origin. So let's all take 10 seconds to kind of soak this in, cross-origin resource sharing. Really try to define to yourself, what do each of these words mean? Think about in your own words, what is CORS? And then we'll talk about it. So let's do 30 seconds on the clock. What is CORS? What does it mean to be cross-origin? What does origin mean? What does it mean to have resource sharing? Why would we ever want to do this? Okay, turn to your neighbor and describe in your own words what is CORS and kind of unpack each of these words. Two different origins. What is resource sharing? We'll clarify what is All right, let's bring it back. Bring it back. Okay, you had like a 2-minute introduction to it, and now you have to define and describe it. What questions do you have? Does anyone want to give it a shot? What is cross-origin resource sharing? Why do we do it? Matthew, give it a shot.
I think it's just basically the ability, or not necessarily the ability, but for one origin to request resource information from another.
And so what is an origin?
Like a domain or...
Domain of any kind, yeah. So I did talk about like different ports, but literally the domain, so chase.com is an origin. omdbapi.com is an origin. Origin is like the server that you're hosting. Well,
Question?
no, yeah, whatever. What do you got?
So kind of related to things like, when would this be a good thing? Like we've got the forbidden aspect of it, but what is it really good for? And like in that case or others, like what could constitute a resource?
Yeah, so a resource is just an API endpoint. So a resource corresponds to like some sort of data you're getting from an API. So for OMDB, like their resources are movies, the OMDB Ajax API. So in the case of that OMDB origin, the resource is movies, but resource can really correspond to any type of data.
Data store.
Yeah, and so the idea is we want to be able to request data from other servers, right? Like that is kind of how the web works nowadays. Like we can talk to the Twitter API, we can talk to all these other APIs and bring data in.
So like if you request something from CDN, then like the server that you're contacting that hosts the website, when it requests jQuery from CDN, that would be a CORS.
Not necessarily. So CORS, and I guess it's good to define this, a CORS error will happen when an AJAX request is being made. So let's just say this. CORS error will happen when an AJAX request is being made to an origin that does not allow access.
And does CORS only refer to the error, or is it the process?
It refers to the error. So it refers to the overlying concept that two origins cannot talk to each other unless they have explicitly allowed it. So in this example I was showing here, really the only thing that I was demonstrating is because this code is running on google.com, it does not have access to the origin chase.com. So we're going to see that error, no access control allow origin header was present. Go for it.
Who would control what you just said? Like how whose decision is that?
Yeah, so that comes down to kind of some of our other points here. Basically, the server is in control. If the server wants to allow you to make those requests, it will set the CORS header and allow any other origin to make that request. So specifically, like the OMDB API, they allow cross-origin requests. So if we look at the network traffic as it comes over, we can see this request, we can look at the headers, and we can see that in the response header, it says access control allow origin star. So that means literally any origin on the web is allowed to make API requests to this URL. So this value right here, access control allow origin, that could be set to a specific domain. And so often, like the way I use it is mastery.galvanize.network. This is a static site hosted on this URL. Mastery .api.galvanize.network is a totally separate origin that all of the data requests go to. So I've set up CORS that say any requests that come from mastery.galvanize.network, allow them in. Any requests that come from some other domain, deny them. So on the server side, you have control as to what origins you're allowing those requests to come in on. Open APIs like this, they'll often set that header to be star, meaning we don't care where you're requesting the data from, any origin is allowed to request this data. But this specific header is set by the server. You have no control over that header.
Is access control out origin like the same thing between servers as like auth would be between a server and a client?
Not as much, because servers don't have to obey this rule. So like I could have server-side code that can literally request from anywhere. This rule is only inside of your web browser, specifically for security concerns, because any website you go to is running JavaScript behind the scenes, right? Like any website you go to can literally be doing things without you knowing with JavaScript. So if they were allowed to do stuff like this, they could try to make requests to like facebook.com and like try to get your login information and stuff like that. But because this is in place, they can't do that. Like they have to have very explicit permissions to be able to make those requests out to other origins. All of this to say, what API were you using when you got your CORS error?
XKCD.
Cool. Do they have an API?
Yeah, it was on the list.
Let's check it out.
So why does this not apply to just servers and applies to web browsers?
Because web browsers are where things need to be secure. Like a server, we'll talk about it when we start talking about server-side code. Servers, when you write code running on a server, you have access to everything. Like you have access to the file system. You have direct access to the network. When we're writing code that runs in the browser, it's very confined. It should have security constraints because every website we go to potentially could have sensitive information on it. So we shouldn't be allowed to just make any sort of request that they want. There should be restrictions inside of the browser. Yeah, so this gets you the current comic, I'm guessing. So if we look at the network tab on here, let's see if it actually is setting any headers. So look at this. We look at the response headers. There is no access control allow origin header on there. So I think learn has jQuery on it. I can use this to make an Ajax request. So right here, if I do $.get, throw in that JSON URL, say .then, get a function with the result, and then just log the result. I can also catch it, because I know there's going to be an error. Go. XML HTTP request cannot load this URL. No access control allow origin header is present on the requested resource. So if we just made this request and looked at the headers, we can see there is no access control allow origin header on there. So the browser just straight up stops that request. Now there are a couple of ways to get around this. So one way is to use a proxy. So like I mentioned a second ago, servers are not under this restriction. Like servers can literally request data from every other server. So what we can do is we can kind of have like a server man in the middle. Basically we say, hey server, please make this request for me. The server makes that request, gets back the data, and then sends you back the response. So this is known as a proxy. The server is basically sitting between you and the thing that you want. So there's this thing called CORS Anywhere. It's a free service that a guy set up where you have this URL, and if you basically put what you're requesting in front of this URL, it sends it through his proxy, and his proxy will add that access control allow origin header for you. So if I now make the request to that, it basically, I'm making the request to his server, which will set the headers. His server is requesting the data from XKCD, which will then send it back, and I should get the response. There we go. So one way to get around it is to use a proxy. Use a thing that's going to add the header for you. And if we look at the network tab, we can see when this request went out directly for that, it got a wait, maybe not. Yeah, when it went out here, the response now has access control allow origin star. So the browser actually allowed the request to happen. So if we look at this, use a proxy to get around a CORS error. Basically, if you don't have control of the server, right? Like I am not in control of XKDC API. XKCD API, but I want to make requests to that in my app, I could use something like CORS Anywhere to make that request and not get the error. Jacob?
So if anyone can use a proxy, how is anybody's information safe if somebody wanted to go ahead?
Yeah, it's like there's still other restrictions in place. Like I could definitely try to request chase.com. Let's just see what happens.
Go on the API list.
Yeah, see the API website 30 minutes later.
And I got so I did get the homepage. But the idea is this request that goes out is because it's going through the proxy, it's not sending my cookies. So or anything specific to that website. One thing to note is like when your browser is making a request out to Facebook or a request out to Chase or wherever else, if that website has set cookies in your browser, when that request goes out, no matter what website it's from, those cookies are going to go along with it. In this case, it's literally just that server making the request to chase.com. So it's none of my personal information that they could even see because I'm literally just saying, hey, server, request chase.com. So it has none of my information. It's literally they're the ones actually making the request. Yeah, there's a lot of other concepts in there to kind of understand like cookies and stuff like that. But just know that when we do this, they're not using any data from our machine about chase.com. They're just making that request for us. So CORS Anywhere is one way. Question?
What's that no Spanish speed bump?
No idea, but that's on the source of chase.com. Like if we literally go to chase.com and then like view the source. Yeah, it just says that there. No idea. Yeah. Okay, everyone think to yourself, what is one way to get around a CORS error? To yourself. All right, on 3, everybody say the answer. 1, 2, 3.
Proxy server.
Proxy. The word proxy, that would be good to add to your vocab list if you have one. Like, what is a proxy? All right, the last way to get around a CORS error is to use JSON with padding. I think I just want to stop talking because I pretty much covered what it is. When you see this error, right? When you see no access control allow origin header is present on the requested resource, commit that to memory. Like when you see that, this is a CORS error. You either have to use a proxy or update your server, if you have access to the server, to set that header.
So is this just like the most, like, is it like please do not touch sign? Like it's not actually going to do anything other than just keep out the most like amateur hour people?
No, because like I said, like a proxy is like actually a whole different way of making the request. You're not really opening up any of your sensitive information by using the proxy. So
in the case of like non-high stakes stuff, like with this comic site,
Mhm.
is it basically like a do not touch? Like
and it might be because like a lot of sites will actually they may not want their API used on the web. They only want it like in native apps or something like that. And so a native app, because it's not a browser, it's not under this restriction, so it can just make those requests. Otherwise, yeah, it might just be like, yeah, please don't. But if you're using a proxy, you could totally get to it if you want to. Actually, I think that's why this was error. If I do done and fail. Yeah. Question?
Yeah. Don't want to be too big of a trap. Is this a proxy be a way to get around? Let's say you're trying to watch clips or shows from like a foreign where like you can't do this in your country.
Absolutely. It works exactly the same way. So basically, that proxy is inside of your country, and so your IP lets you make the request to them, but you're saying, hey proxy, please request this video for me. They request it, and then you get it back. But your internet traffic looks just like you're going to the proxy. They don't see what you're actually requesting. So it's a very similar concept. We're basically routing our traffic through that thing rather than requesting the thing directly.
So how's that different than a VPN?
Just the way you communicate with the server. Like a VPN is actually set up. All of your internet communication goes through it. This is an HTTP proxy in that it forwards HTTP requests and responds with them.
So none of the actual bandwidth is going to that dude's server?
It is though. Yeah. So he like and this is just like a free Heroku instance, but every request that his server makes is using that bandwidth to like download chase.com, to download that JSON, and then he's sending it back to us. So
The images and stuff too? Or?
well, not the images, but just the data itself. Because in this case, we're using it as a request to get JSON. So the JSON is actually going through his server. I don't know if you could request an image through his proxy. You might be able to. He might not allow it. Let's just see. Let's go to like place kitten or place hold it.
So after net neutrality is gone, is this what we're gonna have to do for the websites?
That worked. Yeah, look at that. I got all that image data.
That's what JSON image data looks like?
Well, no, this is like a binary encoding, and it tried to parse it as JSON or something like that. But yeah, yeah. But through his proxy, like that image was literally downloaded to the server and then sent back to me.
What a nice guy.
Yeah, nice guy. I think the Wikipedia API uses a JSONP. Other questions or comments on CORS?
I guess one thing is that basically you're saying when you go to the server, it's not opening up like your personal information to their site. So is it that like sites don't want that? They don't want to have to deal with it, or do they just like? Because like, why would Chase care?
Well, they might not have set it up. So like, and it might be that the site doesn't plan to have an open API. So maybe xkcd.com, they use this API that is on that domain itself. So they never intended for cross-origin requests to be made. So they only ever intended xkcd.com is making these requests, so it's not going to get that error. That kind of answers your question. Was there another part to it?
Okay, I guess yeah. So my question is like, it seems really easy to get around.
Mm.
So I guess like, why haven't they patched that hole?
Yeah, and the thing is, like, it would be an impossible hole to patch because it's just using the HTTP protocol. It's literally like they could never. I mean, this specific site could stop requests from this server. Like it'd say, okay, I've seen way too many requests from that guy. I'm gonna block it. But other than that, there's really no other way to stop it because it's the web is HTTP. Anything can make HTTP requests. Question?
Is this like flood pinging back in the day, like where you basically would send a request like over and over to a server and like it would eventually crash?
Like denial of service? Not so much.
Or no, well, it was just like the volume of requests that you sent could make a server crash.
Yeah, that's pretty much denial of service attacks.
Okay.
This doesn't have anything to do with that. Let's see if we can find the Wikipedia API. Cool. So this is the URL. Action is query. Titles equals main page. Revisions equal RV prop. Content and format equals JSON. So this is requesting main page. Let's request titles equals JavaScript. We're going to try to request the JavaScript article. Okay. So then this is the actual Wikipedia article on JavaScript, but it's like the JSON format of that. But if we look at the request headers, so we'll make this request. So we look at API. The response does not have an access control allow origin tag on it. So if I were to try to make this request with jQuery, break time. Okay, so I'm going to attempt to make this GET request out to Wikipedia. Womp womp, CORS error, no access control allow origin header is present. Now, I happen to know that their API supports JSONP. I believe I can do something like callback. Let's try it. So here, if I say and callback equals hello G51, let's see what happens. Yes, so now when they gave me back the data, they padded all of that JSON with a function invocation. So it's basically all of the data being passed into a function called hello G51. Okay? So what happens is when the browser, you basically create a script tag where the tag is and callback equals hello G51. And then on your page, there's actually a function called hello G51. So when the script tag loads, it gets immediately invoked with this big ol' object. jQuery supports that out of the box. So if you just change the URL to say and callback equals something like $, You might have to do like manual jQuery Ajax to do that. So we'll do $.ajax. We'll pass in, we'll say the method is get. We'll say the URL is that. And the data type is JSON-P. And then right here we can do done. And fail. This might be it. I'll have to look it up if it's not. Let's check it out. So data type JSON-P, and there we go. We get back the actual object without the CORS error. So because this API supports JSON with padding, I can add this callback parameter, and that gets around the CORS error itself. I'm pretty much out of time. I could go into a little bit more of how that was working. I kind of like talked about it, but it's actually really, really freaking cool because this basically invokes a function on your page called hello G51. Let me just make an example of that because it's cool. It's cool. Questions or comments on JSON-P?
Yesterday, Chad just did a get JSON request.
Mm.
And that worked. Did that work in all instances or certain ones?
No. So in this very specific case, this API is not setting that header, so get JSON would not work. It's specific to the header. Did that actually like overcome a CORS error?
Yeah, get JSON, I think it has that preset for you. That might be my
Okay, here is what I'm going to do. Right here, I'm going to have a script that just has a function called hello G51. It accepts a result, and then it logs that result out to the console. Now, if I load this page, like nothing's going to happen, right? Because nothing is invoking hello G51. So let's just start up a server. Okay, page loads. Nothing happens. Now check this shit out. Okay, I'm going to add a script tag. I'm going to put this JSON-P with a callback of hello G51. So when this script tag loads, it actually will load a script that is invoking G51 with a big old JSON object. So watch this. Refresh the page. Boom! Got my data, right? In a script tag, it's like not even Ajax request. But this is what jQuery is actually doing under the hood. When you specify the data type as JSON-P, it actually dynamically adds a script tag to the page with that URL and then defines a function that will be called when the data comes back. Whoa. This is amazing. This is fucking amazing.
So you can like embed that data to your site.
Yeah. So like I right here, I could just like, what is the result.query.pages.9845.title. So I could do document.write result.pages.9845. Oh yeah, I could learn that new trick. Copy property path. Cool.
With a dot.
You
There's
guys
a
are
dot.
beginning stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, result.
Oh.
Boom!
Jesus.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I think if you took away one thing from this talk, actually, let's try to take it from memory. What is the header that must be set by the server to prevent a CORS error? Think about it to yourself. Starts with an A. Has multiple words in it that have the letter A. Who knows the first word? Adam.
Access?
Access. Who knows the next word? We can do this together. Will. Control. Who knows the next one? Adam.
Allow?
Allow. Okay, this last one is a gimme. The name is in, the word is in the description of the acronym itself. Access, control, allow. What was that? Origin, yeah. Cool. And again, you totally don't have to memorize this because the moment you get this error, you're going to see these words in your console. Access, control, allow, origin. Let's just remind ourselves what that looks like.
It's like the error.
So when I make this request without JSON-P, access, control, allow, origin, header is not set. That's when you see that, you know you have a CORS error. Any last questions or comments? None. I had a good lunch. Drank. Yeah, I got some rest last night. I'm feeling good. I did yoga this morning. It's a good day overall. Yeah.
It's just so you thought the function on the page of the screen was so awesome. It's just like I kind of want to know why.
No, just because like
I get there's something there,
but
it's like in a nutshell.
Because the idea is that like so we add script tags all the time, right? So we can do like app.js or jQuery or whatever. When the browser loads that script, it invokes or like it actually executes that code. So what's happening here is this thing is sending back a request that is basically invoking a function that's already on the page. Yeah, so like this, sending back a response, sorry. So this thing is responding, and you can see it in the, like, it's sending back a response that invokes that function right there. So it's basically all of the JSON inside of one big function invocation. So if we go all the way to the bottom, we're going to see a parenthesis, right? So it literally is adding a script tag that has the data that is invoking a function.
And typically a function would be invoked by like the browser.
Yeah, so like, I mean,
Really cool that server's doing it.
Yeah, because basically the page loads all of this code, and all of a sudden that function gets invoked. Otherwise, like you're using code like Ajax to make this request and then do something with the data, but it's not actually being invoked. It's not like being called itself. I don't know. I think it's cool. What's up?
Maybe I'm like misinterpreting something, but this function pre-exists on the page.
It would have to, yes. So that's a really interesting point. So what if I said the callback is not exist? So something that's not on the page. When this script loads, it's going to say not exist is not a function. It's not defined, right? So it tried to invoke that function, but it doesn't exist.
So if a function is an object, is that like the function that is the DOM then?
Not clear. I don't know what you're asking.
Well, like, a function is a sort of object.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? And so if this function is like the function of the page that you're calling, would that be related to the DOM as an object?
No. In this case, this is literally this would be a function defined in your JavaScript code. Yeah. It's 2:52. I'm going to stop talking now. Thank you all so much.